Good morning, friends and neighbors. Hey, Sparky, how you doing? I hope that you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. Today, today, yeah, I hope you're doing all right. Brain. So today, what we're doing, and hopefully, I know this looks a little weird. Let's see if I can. No, that's the wrong thing. So I'm working on updating my PowerPoints for class. You see, this is what I am doing today. You see, social psychology, I'm teaching social psychology this coming semester, and I love teaching social psychology. It's great. But the problem with social psychology, like relative to stats, is, well, this is kind of the cool thing about social psychology, of course, but the problem is that it changes. Stuff happens. Stuff happens. We discover that some effects that we thought were real aren't real. We discover that some effects that we thought were one way are actually another way. We discover that some things that we thought weren't real are real. And of course, we discover new things all the time. So that means periodically I have to update my social psychology slides. And that means I'm going to be doing a lot of research. This is going to take me a while because, I've got to do the slides for the whole semester because it's so stressful during the semester, like updating your slides as you go. So I prefer, if I can, to update them during the summer before the semester starts. It saves me a lot of trouble. And also it's hot outside and I don't want to be outside right now. So that's the plan. We're going to be updating our social psychology lectures, which means I'm going to be doing a lot of Googling and a lot of various things here. You can see a very blurry and distorted version of it in the background. I can't actually show you the lecture slides because, I don't want to dox myself. But you can see a very blurry and distorted version of them, so hopefully that's acceptable. I hope that's okay. But I figured we can work together. If you've got something you're working on, we can all work together. I'll probably yap as I work because I don't have background music, so it feels weird to not yap. I'm not a Pomodoro person, by the way. Like, when I lock in, I just kind of lock in and I just work straight through most of the time, or at least that's what I try and do. So I'm just going to be going. I'm not going to take breaks or anything. You should definitely work on homework. Yeah, get that homework done. The sooner you get it done, the sooner you can goof off. That was my strategy in undergrad. When I had homework in undergrad, and I tried to do this in grad school too, but it didn't work as well. But what I would do is I would finish all of my homework for that week on the Monday morning. And that way I got through all my homework on the Monday morning of the week that it was due, and I'd turn it in, and then I had no homework for the rest of the week because it was already done, and it was actually really nice. I guess that's kind of the same philosophy that has me working on updating my slides in the summer before the semester even starts. It's like, I'm gonna do a lot of work now so I can be lazy and goof off later. Oh. But yeah, today is, there we go, I adjusted my webcam a bit. Okay. Today, I'm working on my first PowerPoint. This is my introduction to social psychology slide, so it's not going to be anything like super exciting or anything. It's just talking about what social psychology is and stuff like that. Maybe, I'm debating one day whether I should do a lecture series on social psychology. I thought that would be a lot of fun because I did the one on statistics, but I wonder if anyone would be interested in that. I think it's interesting, but I'm naturally very, very biased because I am a social psychologist. So I think social psychology is the most fascinating thing in the world. But I don't... If the people want it, they will come. If they don't want it, whatever. Either way, I'm gonna get it started. So I always start all my lectures with syllabus talk, and I worked on my syllabus this morning. So these first few slides are just talking about the syllabus. Yada yada, all that good stuff. I think I already updated these while I was on a plane. I've been traveling a lot this summer. The problem is with working on them on the plane is that I have to use my laptop, and if you know, like... If you follow me on Twitter and like use Twitter on a semi-regular basis, you probably know something about me, which is that I don't get along with keyboards. I don't get along with... I'm very good at breaking keyboards. It's a problem of mine. So the keyboard on my laptop doesn't actually have a working O key. Or is it an I key? I think it's the letter I that doesn't work. And also the key for 8 and asterisk is also horribly broken. They just don't work on my laptop. So I have an external keyboard, but it wasn't working on the plane. So it was horrible. Hey, Arknavis! That would be really cool. I'm working for a research project that's researching tolerance, so it's kind of specific in social sci. A touch up on the basics would be nice. Oh, that's so cool! I do have a series of lectures on that I will need to be updating on prejudice and discrimination, and then also on reducing prejudice. That's so like I could definitely talk about stuff related to that. I haven't actually seen much research framed specifically as tolerance. I would love to learn more about that. And actually, my prejudice reduction lecture is kind of short, mainly because most of the strategies that we've tried historically as well, I shouldn't say we, because I've never researched this personally, but historically, social psychologists have really struggled to reduce prejudice and discrimination. Um, so I definitely need to pad out that lecture a bit more and find more and newer research. So maybe I should look more into the tolerance area. I never thought that tolerance was like a, or is it like tolerance not? Oh, hey, Eggy! Welcome. I love your animations, by the way. You're like the Eggy from Z's Discord, right? You make incredible animations. I love them. They make me so happy. That one with Psy and Phi from this morning was so good. So good. Hmm. Yeah, is it like tolerance in a context of like intergroup relations, or is it tolerance with like in terms of like stimuli? Hey Astral, how you doing? Good to see you, Astral. I hope you're doing well. Oh, it's so good to have all of you here join me for this adventure in whatever this is. Is this the one? No, I did another one where I updated my cheating slides. The worst part of any introduction lecture is talking about cheating. Tolerance in regards to in-group and out-group. That is so cool. I also have another lecture on groups. Oh man, I'll have to look into that area of research. That is so cool. I'd love to hear about this work that you're doing sometime. But I know that like if you get too specific, sometimes it can be doxable. So if you're not comfortable telling me, you do not have to tell me. Okay, pretty sleepy but mostly fine. Oh, that's fair. You do stay up late. I worry a little bit. I don't know if I need to worry, but I do worry a little bit. Let's see. All right. Okay. Definition of social psychology. Do I need to update this slide? Study. I don't think the definition of social psych changes all that much, right? How people think about, influence, and relate to others. Yeah, my profs created a new model for tolerance, so if I go into specifics, I will definitely... That, on one hand, that's super duper cool. On the other hand, like, yeah, it's dangerous. If you're on the cutting edge, it's very easy to dox yourself. Don't worry, I have a GP appointment booked. Okay, alright, yeah. I'm glad that you're taking care of yourself. Thank you, if only I have your art skills for animation. Animation skills and art skills are shockingly like very different skill sets. I wish I had your animation skills. Like the movement on that Psy in that animation was really impressive. I don't think I could pull that off. But all it takes is practice, right? Like I definitely need to practice animation more. I want to do more of that. So I guess we've all got a lot of practice ahead of us. Or not. It depends on what we feel like doing, you know. Alright, yeah. How people think about, influence, and relate to others. Oh, the ways in which people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by the real or imagined presence of other people. How psychology interacts with other people in society at large. I'll change that to how our mind interacts with and perceives. Reacts to and interacts with. Okay, how our mind reacts to and interacts with other people and society at large. I hope that sounds good. Honestly, that's my second time animating. That's really good for your second time animating. Like, I've done a lot. Well, I don't want to say a lot of animation, but I've definitely animated, like, more than 2 things in my time, and, like, I struggle a lot. Like, you've really... Ooh, after Z-Dance? What's Z-Dance? I don't know what Z-Dance is. But, like, I think you've got a good handle on, like, the flexibility of animation. My animations always end up too stiff, I think. Like, I'm too scared to really push different poses. I worry that it won't look like a continuous movement. So my animations end up really stiff a lot of the time, but you don't seem afraid of that at all, and it works out really, really well. Like, you're using big dynamic movements in the frames, it looks like, and it's really, really working for you, and you've got, like, the squash and stretch of time, you know, like, where, like, you have some small movements and then some big movements to make, like, the dynamic speed of movement and stuff. I wouldn't have guessed that was only your second time animating. Like, you've got like the basic principles really down in a way that I do not after animating on and off for a long time. I don't want to imply I animate a lot because I don't, but like you, you know what I mean, right? I've been animating on and off for probably since 2010 or so. I've been probably animating on and off since 2010, more off than on, but anyway, right, I'm supposed to be working. Okay, so the weird thing about the definition of social psychology is that part of it is how our psychology reacts to the real or imagined presence of others. So I have a slide talking about what the heck that means, because what the hell does imagined presence of others mean? Let's see, is this slide okay? Is it comprehensible? The scientific study of ways... Okay, I just highlighted the real or imagined bit. Maybe I'll make this text, because I already showed this text. I'll make it a little lighter to indicate this is old text that they don't need to reread. But I wanted to emphasize a specific part of it. This is all about, yeah, people can intentionally or unintentionally influence us. Yeah, we are humans are social creatures. And Mothmen, of course. We're social creatures, so it's very easy for us to be influenced by others, whether they are intentionally trying to change us or influence us, or whether they're not trying at all. It still happens. Just being around people can change your thoughts and behaviors, thoughts, feelings. Thoughts, I want to include feelings in there. And behaviors. Just thinking of people can also do that. Wild. A part of it is like when I was first creating a lot of my slides, I was trying to use simpler language, but I didn't really succeed as much as I would have liked to. So I'm going to try and simplify the language even more. Like, what's the point of slides if the language is too complex for people to understand? Oh yeah, and there's the slide about, like, an example of getting influenced by imagined other people is when you get dressed in the morning. Like, the way that you get dressed depends on what you're doing in the day and how you think people react to you. Like, if I'm not going out, I will dress, like, in jeans with holes in them and like old baggy t-shirts or whatever. But if I'm going to a wedding, I'm gonna dress a lot nicer, and there's nobody in the room with me telling me how to dress, but because I know that I'm going to be around people later in the day, I dress a certain way, and therefore the imagined reaction of people later in the day is influencing how I act now. Where can I find these 2010 Aikman animations? On another channel that I have that is not under this name. And I've definitely privated a lot of them. Yeah, no, you'll have, if it's gonna, you'll have to dig if you want to find them. And many of them are just not public anymore. It's okay, we all have a past. It's true, we do all have a past. Let's see, what is the self? Okay, this slide is one that I always trip over when I'm doing this lecture, because it seems like it comes out of nowhere. So I might just delete it, because I don't think it makes... I think it ruins the flow of the lecture. It would make sense in a different lecture, I think, but not this lecture. Alright, so what do social psychologists study? We study attitudes. So they're like what type of soda you like, your preferences. Maybe I should put the kombucha meme, because that's all about attitudes, right? That's about a girl who's trying kombucha. and is forming an attitude on it. So maybe rather than Coke versus Pepsi, I can use the attitude towards kombucha, because I feel like that tells a bit more of a story. And part of my philosophy is that stories are really important for learning. Like, I think that we learn things better when we have some sort of personal attachment to them, and we can form personal attachments to them through stories. And in terms of saying what an attitude is in social psychology, rather than just saying, well, you have an attitude towards Pepsi or Coke, I think it's easier to say, like, this woman formed an attitude towards kombucha, and you can see her forming that attitude. At first, she's not sure if she likes it, then she sees that maybe she does like it a little bit. She's starting to see the appeal. This is her attitude towards it forming. On the left, we see indications of a negative attitude. On the right, we're seeing a more positive attitude. Oh, that's cool. It flipped it. I'm looking at my blur, and it looks like it flipped the slides. Aha, even more sneaky. I also just really like including memes in my slides, which is another reason that I have to update them, because, you know, they're like, if a meme is old enough, it becomes fun again, and if it's very recent, it's fun. But there's that gray area in the middle where the meme is just, like, cringe, but not in an entertaining cringe way, you know? Like, you gotta be careful. Memes have a weird aging process. Does this logic make any sense whatsoever? I don't know if it does. Alright, this was an example of real research on attitudes. But I don't think I like this as much. Let's see if we can find a different example of research on attitudes. Let's see. I really like Pew Research. Pew Research is really fun. Let's see. Pew Research, they're a sort of like a polling firm. They're really cool. They do a whole bunch of, like, polls and stuff of a whole bunch of people. And, like, they get representative samples or stuff, and they ask them all kinds of questions. I really wanted to work there. I applied to work there, and I applied to them once, and they sent me 2 different rejection letters, which sucked. Yeah, you're either a presenter with actual memes and seem relatable, or the old one trying to pander to the young crowd. Yeah, yeah. I really do aim to try and, like, be a presenter with actual memes. But I will say, as somebody who is aging, there is definitely some appeal to, like, pretending to be the old person who's trying to be hip. Like, I don't know how to put it, but, like, as you get older, you realize that it's really fun to make younger people cringe. Like, it becomes really fun to start doing the hello fellow kids thing as you get older. But, like, also, I don't want to be seen as, like, a completely ignorant older person, so I do try and do, like, actual memes that are, like, proper memes that are still in the cultural zeitgeist to be like, hey, I'm cool. But then sometimes I also do the hello fellow kids thing just because I think it's hilarious. Like, there's nothing like getting in front of a lecture hall and showing a picture of Skibbity Toilet and watching everybody in the crowd just go, "Ugh!" It's very funny. And honestly, it made the point I was trying to make. Like, the very fact that everybody cringed made the point I was trying to make. It was a point about, it was a research methods lecture, and it was talking about, how different stimuli will have different reactions from different crowds. Oh, it does? I'm glad. See, like, Skibbity Toilet is people have different reactions to it depending on their age group. Like, younger people, especially really young kids, seem to really like Skibbity Toilet. People in my age group, I've gotten to the point where we're like, kids these days, you know? Like, we really cringe at it. Even people my parents' age get confused. I'm a primary school teacher. I yearn to see my students cringe at my hot memes. You have the power, Eggy. You can do it. I believe in you. Just don't abuse the power too much. You gotta use your power sparingly. Yeah, as long as you're conscious of the fact that you're cringe, it's really fun. Exactly. Like, if you're not consciously trying to be cringe, then it's just plain cringe. If you're consciously tr- if you're conscious that you're cringe, then that's the part where it gets funny. I've never understood Skibbity. Me, actually, I kind of do understand Skibbity Toilet. And this is why. When I was in high school, Gmod videos were all the rage. Like, silly Gmod videos, like, oh, what? My friend used to make some. Gary's Mod was like I don't really know too much about Gary's Mod. It was like an old video game where you could do like a bunch of stuff. I think it might have been based on something. It's a guy in a toilet. What's so hard? I know, I do kind of understand Skibbity Toilet. It's true. It's true. I understand Skibbity Toilet because I'm a genius like that. But no, it has the same vibes as the old like Gary's Mod videos, the old like TF2 Gary's Mod, Half-Life, Full Life Consequences. It has that kind of vibe, you know? Like it doesn't feel terrible. Like I don't personally enjoy Skibbity Toilet. I I don't it's not like my thing. But on the other hand, as somebody who did find a lot of old Gary's Mods videos really funny when they were first coming out, like, I find it very relatable that people would enjoy such a thing. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but like, you know, I think every generation had that thing. Yeah, it's like YouTube poop. Exactly, right? Like, it may not appeal to me personally, but as somebody who did enjoy things like YouTube poop and like weird Gary's Mod and Half-Life Full Life Consequences, like, it's the same thing. It's the same. Yeah, every generation has its absurd meme period, like the era back when I was like MLG. MLG. See, when you say MLG, all I can think of is MLG water bucket in my Yeah, most trends do get recycled one way or another. Bell-bottom jeans are coming back. Oh, those freaking long jeans that were really popular when I was a kid that were horrible because, like, whenever it rained, the jeans would just soak up all the water and you were always treading on the back of them. Those are coming back, and that just makes me sad. Because, like, I really liked them, but on the other hand, they were so uncomfortable. JNCO. Is that what they were called? Maybe. Maybe. All I know is that when I was, like, maybe that's what they're called. See, like, they were really, like, I wore them a lot when I was in elementary school, so I wasn't really aware of the name of whatever type of style of jeans I was wearing. Does that age me? Does that date me that I wore these types of jeans in elementary school? Oh no. But yeah, first of all, they drag on the floor for a normal person. And when I'm not wearing my current outfit that I'm currently wearing with my long pointy legs, I actually have very short legs. So they dragged on the floor even more for me than anyone else. So all my jeans were like the heels of my jeans were just really muddy and ripped up. And yeah, they're not stilettos. They're just my legs. These are my legs now. This is how I look. Do you like my legs? I never saw your legs. That's surprising, right? These are my legs. Don't. It's hard. I live near a city, and you don't want to walk in cities with these legs because you get in trouble when you try and walk over the grates. They are not feet! I have no feet. I don't have feet anymore. Y'all ruined feet for me. I can't have feet. I feel like I'm making it worse by saying this. Let's see. American support for cell phone bans. I think I can frame this as an attitude thing. Right? Do I paint my toenails? I don't have toenails. I always forget that VTuber have feet. It's like, whoa, right, you have feet, right? Because you never see them. You never see them. but I will happily show you my legs that don't have feet. There are no feet here. Maybe I should change into my other outfit, but then where I do have feet. I'm not, I don't know. It's a scary thought. Most models are like hyper detailed in that area. Why would you spend more time than you have to when people are never gonna see, like, everybody's always like, full body models are more expensive than half body models because they take a lot more rigging and art, right? But like, I don't know why you would spend that much more money when people probably aren't gonna see that part of the model at any point other than like the model reveal stream. Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Hmm. All right, this is annoying because this is like, yeah, I never understood, but I'm not a feet guy, so not the demographic. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't get it either because I'm not the demographic, but I mean, it is part of the character design, and I am a fan of that in that sense. I really like it as a character design thing. Or like you can get creative character design wise. All right, I found an example of attitudes. This is attitudes towards banning cell phones in schools. This is from the Pew Attitudes Survey 2025. Or no, wait, this is the, what survey is this? I gotta properly source my, what did they call this survey? This is survey of adult. It's just a survey of adults. So I'll just call it Pew Survey 2025, and then I'll link it in case any of my students want to go and read the full article. I don't know if I imagine some students would be interested in the full article. Like, what are attitudes towards cell phone ban in schools? I imagine that's like, it won't be relevant to them because I don't think this is something that would, because this is specifically about attitudes towards middle and high school cell phone bans, which isn't necessarily, like, I have college students, those are my students, but it was relevant to them semi-recently. Holistic approach to characters is always nicer. Yeah, and you have like a lot more flexibility. You have a lot more flexibility in terms of like what you can do, and I don't know, it's fun. Like, I am a sucker for just character design. I really enjoy character design as like a thing. All right, here. Attitudes towards cell phone bans. That's a good example of attitudes, I think, that my students will find relatable and interesting. Much more so than attitudes towards political parties, which is interesting, but that was out of date. Yeah, but you can compare your recent attitude to it as a student. I'd be interested. Yeah, I wonder if they have older data on this. Like, this is from 2005. Our support has ticked up since last year, so they probably do have some older data in here. Oh yeah. Hmm. Let's see, maybe I can show you all this Pew data. Do I have I love Pew. Pew is great. We all should appreciate Pew more. Okay. Character design is always fun, because even if I can really do ideas justice, I think you do fine. Let's see, where is it? I have a set of shapeshifters in my D&D campaign, just doodle forms for them when I'm bored. Nice. Nice. Shapeshifters are fun. So here's the Pew article, and here it is, attitudes towards cell phones, and these are from last year and this year, and it shows the attitudes. People are getting more supportive of banning cell phones for the entire school day. Like, it's still, for the most part, less than half of people support this. Support's much higher for banning specifically during class, but even people 18 to 29 are supportive of it. More than half of people between 18 to 29 now support banning cell phones in class. Of course, 18 to 29 isn't, because this is specifically for middle and high school students, so they probably have very few high school students in here and definitely no middle school students in here, which is kind of a shame, but it's harder to get approval to do surveys on people who are under 18, especially, I imagine, like if you are not specifically working at a school. Um, but I think that's interesting. And this is just over the course of a year, like especially between people 18 to 29, that is a huge jump. That's a huge attitude change. Anyway, so that's the example that I'm going to use for attitudes and research on attitudes in my PowerPoint for this class. Hmm. We research understanding others, attraction and relationships. I feel like The Bachelorette is out of what show are all the kids watching these days in terms of dating? Would that be like Love Island? Is Love Island popular? What popular dating shows or like things like that? You know, like I don't know how many, because that's just, are kids even watching TVs? That's exactly what I'm thinking, Arc Nativist. Like, are kids even watching TVs? I think Love Island is popular. My sister and mom watch it at least. Yeah, I figured that my students will at least know what Love Island is. I think they're more likely to know what it is than The Bachelorette, I think. So let's go with Love Island. I don't know, is there like a TikTok or like short form equivalent of dating shows? I don't wonder. I'm thinking The Button or stuff like that on YouTube. What is The Button? I've never heard of this. The Button dating show. There's MILF Mesh. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! I forgot. I mean, I guess if I brought up MILF Mansion in class, on one hand, that would certainly get my students' attention. On the other hand, see, these are the things that you have to weigh when you're deciding whether to put things in a lecture. It's like, will this get my students' attention? Absolutely. Will my students lose all respect for me? That is a real risk. I never bothered to hook up my TV in my apartment. Yeah, I don't have a TV plan. I did actually buy a TV antenna because I like watching award shows, but that's like the only time I watch TV. So I have an antenna, but like I only have like a $10 TV antenna, and that's the only way I can watch TV, and I only do it like once or twice a year. Risk reward is not good for that one. Exactly. I don't think MILF Matter, the risk reward on that, including that in a lecture, is not worth it. It's a sacrifice worth the faces your students will make. See, that's another factor you need to weigh. It's like, will this get my students' attention? How will this affect their perception of me as their instructor? And is it worth it? Is the mental damage I will be inflicting upon my students worth it? Drop it like 3/4 of the way through a 2-hour lecture and they'll probably think they imagined it. If I drop it 3/4 of the way through a 2-hour lecture, I don't think any of them will even perceive it at all. Luckily, these lectures are not 2 hours long, fortunately. 2 hours is a lot. I do have a class that I'm teaching this semester that is 2 hours long, and that is a lot. That's a lot. Mm. All right, persuasion. Persuasion. Are there any, like, meme ads right now? Are there any, like, really silly, 2-hour 9 a.m. lectures? Oh, man. I think I had a 2-hour 7:30 a.m. lecture, and it was history. And it wasn't slides. It was just the guy writing out sentences on an overhead projector. That was pain. I mean, at least history's kind of interesting because, it's a story, but it was still not great. My stats class was at 7:30 a.m., but the teacher would try and wake us up by playing a video before it or something. That's brutal. It was brutal. It was rough. I have 4 hours 7 p.m. lecture after that is painful. A 4 hour lecture should be illegal. That sounds horrible. Even my love of history couldn't bring me to do that. Yeah, it was not great. It was not great. The exams in that class were the worst. Mm. Yeah, good luck, Eggy. I think I had an 8:30 p.m. class once, and it went until like 10. And I think that was the worst. Raid Shadow Legends ad. The price of part-time degrees. Yeah, yeah. Like any degree that's aimed for people who are currently working. Like the one class I had at 8:30 p.m. that went for like 2 hours, um, for an hour and a half was in the business school. Like things that are classes that are designed for working professionals are at are late in the evening and they are long. They are so bad. I'm trying to find a YouTuber, a screenshot of a YouTuber talking about Raid Shadow Legends. Because that seems like a good thing for persuasion. Internet Historian is good. Oh man, Internet Historian's ads are very funny. Here, I found one. I found one. I don't want to. I try to avoid like showing videos in my classes most of the time, just because I worry about tech problems. But internet historians, then again, internet historian is like, I gotta be very careful about the public figures that I show in class, because like sometimes you can really like lose some of your students on that. Social influence, conformity, and obedience. I think Jonestown is still a really striking example of this, so I'm gonna keep that. Group processes. What is a group thing that I can do? I mean, group projects. Alright, that's a very relatable thing. I think all of my students have had, at least almost all my students, have had like one or two group projects, so they can highly relate to group projects as a thing, I think. You know the nice part of education? Making PowerPoints for YouTube lectures is so much harder than making lecture PowerPoints for like class lectures. Because educational materials made for like courses and stuff, like official like college or school courses, that's an area of fair use. But if I do a lecture on YouTube, it's no longer fair use, so I have to be very careful about the like images and videos that I use in those lectures. But if it's for like a college class, I don't need to worry. Wasn't Internet Historian part of the H-Bomber guy Apocalypse? Never watched his video, so I can't. Yes, yeah. His guy in cave video was very heavily. It wasn't even. It was more or less plagiarized from a really incredible article on that incident. Yeah. I've watched that H-Bomber guy video like 3 or 4 times, so just saying something considering that, it's a 4 hour long video. If I could, if it was shorter, I would require my students, especially in my lab class, to watch that video before their first paper is due, because I think he makes a really good case about like both what plagiarism is and why plagiarism is bad. I think that should be a required viewing for college students, or in any case where you're like writing a paper or something. I think it's a great video to make the point of why you shouldn't plagiarize and what plagiarism is. I meant the Internet Historian videos. The H. Bomber video was on loop while I was writing a paper. Nice. Yeah, no, the Internet Historian video, was bad. I thought he did. Yeah, he does do sponsor, like, Eggy, you are so right. He absolutely does do sponsored segments well. His sponsor segments, like, his sponsor segments are very good. I'm always imagining because, like, you have to get sponsored segments approved. And I always wonder what it must be like when he's, but I guess like if you're going to internet historian with a sponsorship offer, you probably know what you're getting into, right? You probably know the kind of sponsorship segment he's gonna make for you, right? His editing is very funny. His editing is very funny for sure. Um, I want a new image for this stereotyping and prejudice thing. Mm, but that can be difficult. Eh. Man, social psychology is really cool and really interesting, but one of the rough things about it is that, it covers some really heavy topics. Oh man. Let's see. So I feel like a lot of my classes probably need to start with, I don't know about it like a trigger warning, but like I definitely need to warn like, hey, we're gonna talk about some pretty heavy topics in this. Our slides for prejudice were always like 2005 stoner school kids pictures. Oh man, I do try and have like more contemporary examples on there, which is that can be rough. Like I understand it can be difficult to find like good images and stuff, and the classic emo, yeah. It's hard to talk about stereotyping and prejudice in class, especially like because you don't want to get too heavy, but also you don't want to like make it clear that you're avoiding the meat of the topic, right? If that makes sense. It can be really hard. Like I teach at a very diverse school. Like we have a lot of people from a bunch of different social groups at my university, which is really interesting, you know? Like it's really cool that we have such a diverse student population. And it means like we have a bunch of people who've had a whole bunch of different experiences and like, but it also makes it like when you're talking about experiences with prejudice and discrimination, a lot of my students live that stuff every day, which makes it interesting to talk about. And like, yeah, there's a lot of like consideration about how you want to handle this when like you're talking about like I don't want to minimize this experience on one hand, but on the other hand, I don't want you to come into this classroom and have to relive some really horrible moments in your life, you know? Like there it's a difficult balance to strike between like making it clear just how heavy and difficult of an issue this is without, just making my students feel really shitty or making them remember things that they would rather not, or like I don't know how to put it. It's a delicate balance. It's that balance, that like true crime people cannot hit, where they're like you've got to treat these topics with the appropriate respect and weight without reveling in the darkness of them. You know? I don't know how to put it, but like yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. Aggression. We do study aggression as social psychologists. What you're saying does make sense. I'm glad. Yeah, oh man. Oh boy. I love social psychology though. Like we study a lot of very important issues, but it can be hard, like especially with prejudice, if you're in the area of prejudice and discrimination, or like I'm in conspiracy theories, and a lot of these areas are related to a lot of like horrible real world violence and struggle. Um, and it's rough studying this stuff because a lot of the time you're trying to like, or like people will try and create interventions, you know, to reduce prejudice or like to prevent violence or reduce this kind of like the negative things that we're studying, and it's a very difficult thing to do. We really struggle to do that. It's very hard to change people's behavior, and often the behavior is the thing that has the biggest impact, right? The biggest negative impact of these negative things is often because people are behaving in negative ways, but it is incredibly difficult to change people's behavior. Like, you know, when you say like, oh, I'm gonna start eating healthier starting tomorrow, or I'm gonna start exercising, or like I'm gonna like stop playing as many video games and start like studying more, or whatever it is, it's very, very difficult to change people's behavior. So we're studying all these like really depressing negative things that are fascinating. But then you're like, okay, how do we fix this problem? And the problem is usually behavior. Like attitudes absolutely is also a problem. Like prejudice is a problem in and of itself. But discrimination is the biggest impact on people's lives, and it's easier to address attitude, like prejudice, than it is to address discrimination. Yeah, and then you add all those social circles that enable the behavior, and boom, good luck. Exactly. Exactly. Which is why social norms is so important. Like, changing social norms is more important, I would say, than changing individual attitudes. Because, like, maybe you can't change somebody's mind, but you can change whether they feel comfortable sharing those views. And that can be used for good, and that can be used for bad. um, like everything's a double-edged sword, you know. But yeah, but one of the most effective ways of like reducing discrimination does appear to be changing social norms. So the norms of the social circles that people are in. If you create a social norm that it is unacceptable to engage in these discriminatory behaviors, that seems to be a very real and effective way of reducing discrimination. But of course, changing social norms is hard because you've got to get like, changing the social norm means convincing the majority of a social group that behaving in a certain way is or is not acceptable. So that means you're trying to convince a lot of people of something. And there are some ways to do that that are easier than others. And it's difficult. It's difficult. Context matters. I feel like context matters deserves its own slide. Because that's like the big thesis statement of social psychology, right? Context is super important. What I mean by that is, like, in social psychology, context is the main thing. It's not just like, what is this person doing? It's what is the context that they're doing it in, you know? So like me, let's say I'm boogieing down. I'm dancing. I'm dancing. I'm really into it. In certain contexts, like if I'm at a party where there's music playing, or maybe I am taking part in a dance recital, or I'm at a club and I'm dancing, in that context, me dancing my heart out makes complete sense and is completely socially acceptable. But if I'm dancing my heart out and I'm in the middle, like I'm a student in a lecture hall, dancing my heart out in the middle of a lecture on something, or if I'm dancing my heart out in the aisle on a plane that's in the air, in that case, or like I'm dancing my heart out at a funeral or something, like depending on the social context, the same behavior or the same action might be interpreted in a completely different way. And that's like the sort of central thesis statement of social psychology. I always use funeral as an example. Yeah. Oh, here's a good one. There's a good one. I found a picture. It's a comic called Context Matters, and it is a picture of a slice of pizza on a plate versus a slice of pizza on, like, a sewer, on a manhole cover. That is a very important thing. Yeah, it's very good. Context matters. That's a good one. Yeah, funeral is a good example. I like using wedding as an example, or like be one of my favorite examples for me is just like how I behave at home versus like how I behave at work or whatever, or like at a wedding. Like, I don't know about all of you, but like for me, floor time is very important. When I'm at home, like if I'm just chilling at home, there is a very high probability that I'm lying on the floor. But I cannot get away with lying. If it's like my sister's wedding or something like that, and I just lay on the floor at my sister's wedding, I would get in so much trouble. Or laying on the floor on the train. Oh, no, right? Like, I use that a lot as like a context matters thing. Like, this is perfectly fine if I'm alone at home, but if I'm in another context, like if I'm at an important business meeting, lying on the floor is not okay. I think you're like the third or fourth streamer I've heard talking about floor time. Hey, Adam, welcome. Floor time is so important. I was talking to my therapist actually, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I like to lie on the floor," and my therapist was like, "What? What?" She'd never heard of floor time. And like I thought maybe I was weird for doing floor time, but then I started seeing like memes and text posts about floor time, and I was like, see, I'm not weird about floor time. A work example I had was troubles with cause the attitude towards work changed in the last generation. Yeah. Yeah, the attitude towards how you're supposed to behave. And even just with COVID, COVID has really changed how we relate to work and social norms around work and stuff like that. I think a lot of people don't lie on the floor. I don't know when I started lying on the floor or when I thought it was okay, but like I don't I think most people, well, I don't know about most people, but like I know if I lay on the floor and my mom saw me laying on the floor, she would lose it. Girlfriend calls it connecting to the earth. My therapist concluded that it's a way of grounding yourself. I rarely lay on the floor, but I do sometimes. Yeah, and I think like the type of floor you have available to you is also a major factor. Like if you have a rug versus are you laying on like hardwood versus are you laying on concrete, or versus like are you inside or outside, or do you have carpet, or how recently have you vacuumed or swept. All of these things are factors in whether floor time feels like an appropriate thing to do. Oh yeah, enjoy your floor time, Aggie. We live on a second floor, mind you. There is a long connection line, but I don't tell her that. I mean, I think it's like my therapist was like, it's grounding, right? You're like, you become, it's kind of like a form of almost mindfulness, because like more of your body is in contact with something, whether that's your bed or the floor or the couch or something, which helps sort of ground you in the moment, makes you more aware of your body, which can have some positive mental health effects, I would say. Like, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a clinician in any way. I'm just saying what my therapist said to me, which may have been tailored to me specifically, but my therapist for me specifically endorses floor time. So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna run with it. I've been debating getting a rug for my office on campus so that I can lay on the floor on campus. Because my office's floor is not something that I would want to lay on. It is not looking appealing, but if I got a rug, I could do that. Okay, let's see, what was I doing? Talking about context matters. The importance of the situation. So, I'll change that to some time therapist endorsed floor time. Exactly. Sometimes context matters more than others. Yoga mat wouldn't be considered. Oh, a yoga mat! That's actually really genius. Though I don't think a carpet would be conspicuous either. But a yoga mat is, that's a good idea. What was it? Well, there was a thing that I'm trying to take off there. I'm getting rid of my eye bags. But my lab mate when I was in grad school, he didn't have a yoga mat that he would bring in because actually we had like some comfy carpet to lay on in that lab space. But he had a foam roller in the lab so he could just, I don't know, whatever people who actually exercise and take care of their body in that way do with foam rollers. Is yoga socially normalized floor time? Maybe. Maybe. Specifically like the meditation, the cool down part of yoga. I haven't done yoga regularly since high school, but I remember like the cool down part of yoga, we would just lay on our yoga mats on the floor, and I would consider that socially normalized floor time, absolutely. Um, two major, I'm gonna add the word research here. Research methods. Two major types of study. I'll call it types of study. Correlational versus experimental. Various types of social psychology, organizational psychology, which is social psychology for the workplace. You can study video games, you can do political psychology, advertising, marketing, advertising and design, informed by psychology, and so on and so on. Social psychology is everywhere. Levels of analysis. I feel like this gets confusing, but this is specifically what's, a lot of my students will be like, okay, so like what's the difference between social psychology and sociology, which is a great question. Sociology analyzes people at the level of the group, whereas social psychology looks at the person in the group. Social psych focuses on the psychology of an individual of the individual in their social situation. And the individual. Yeah, sociology. I'm going to frame this, formally I just said sociology, but I'm going to do it sociology versus social psychology. Sociology, I think that'll make it easier to explain. Sociology looks at the group as a whole. Good night. Good night, Aggie. Rest well. I hope that you get some good rest. All right, let's see. Clinical psychology. I shouldn't say the average person. Social psychology focuses on the typical person, not Uh, let's also frame this in a versus. Clinical focuses on individual differences that cause distress. Social focuses on the typical person. Of course, what is the typical person? That's a whole other question. Personality psychology. Personality, even though it's often lumped with social psychology, personality focuses on how people stay the same across contexts. Social, more about, focuses on how people differ across contexts. There we go. I think that's a much better way to set up this slide, at least in terms of like, here's how these things differ from one another. Before I was just like defining the other thing, but I think this is a much clearer way to compare and contrast. So I guess I'm not really updating the material so much as I'm clarifying the material for today. But tomorrow, I'm probably gonna be doing these like working streams every weekday for the next few weeks until I can update everything as much as I want. My goal is to do at least one lecture a day, but I guess the next lecture is really long. So maybe I should start on that today, depending on how I'm feeling. Yeah. Work. Why study social psychology? It's really interesting. And cool. Personal reasons. You might want to understand psychological processes involved in this is too jargony. I need to change this up. I don't want my slides to be all jargony. I want them to be clear and easy to understand. You know? Understanding how people think, how other people think and behave in society, how and why other people think the way they do can help us interact with others. And to inform action, we want to understand how to deal with social problems. Yeah. How do we make people healthier? How do we make them happier? How do we decrease bad things like discrimination and violence? How do we increase good things like charitable giving and helping and stuff like that? Bad things. Increase good things. And contribute to policy, legal theory, and business practices. So just help other people do their jobs. Various examples of, rather than applications of social psychology, let's say uses of social psych, or questions or ways to use social psychology. Scientific studies. So social psychology is a science. You'd be amazed at the number of people who major in psychology and then come around and like take a whole research methods course where we learn about the scientific method and stuff like that. And then just say psychology isn't a science. It's like, bro, come on. We use the scientific method and everything. We're better at some parts of science than other areas that are more well respected than us. Shut up. Our replication rate is better than medicine, and you would never call somebody who researches medical treatment not a scientist, so why do you call us not scientists? I'm bitter. And just kind of sad, you know, like you spend a whole semester teaching people and trying to convince them that psychology is a science, and they chose to major in psychology. Like they chose to dedicate their 4 years of college to this specific topic, and then they're like, but it's not a science. And I'm like, what? How? Why? And then they'll be like, not a real science, like engineering. And it's like, engineering isn't a science, though. They don't use that scientific method. I'm not saying engineering's bad or like, it just doesn't, a lot of engineering doesn't use the scientific method. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a science if you use the scientific method, right? That's how I think about it. Like the scientific method, yeah, Sparky, right? It is whack. Yeah, engineering's engineering. Yeah. Yeah, engineering is its own thing and it's really cool. Like, and they still like make cool discoveries and stuff. It's just not using the scientific method, and that's okay. I had girls in my fourth semester in psychology telling me she thinks astrology is more accurate than psychology. Ark, you're killing me. I mean, not you are killing me, but those other students are killing me. Economics, on the other hand, isn't science. Oh man, econominon. My friend econominon would argue with that. I guess there are some areas of economics that are way more scientific than others, like A's disciples. Yeah, the astrologer's disciples were in that. You've been studying the right. It hurts. It hurts. But yeah, I have a friend econominon who does use the scientific method to study economics. I think different branches of economics use different methods. So I would consider some economists scientists, like my econominon. My friend econominon is definitely, I would consider him a scientist because he does use the scientific method to study things. But other economists may, like some other economists I would not consider scientists if they don't use the scientific method to study stuff. Yeah, you can definitely do science on economics and it's pretty cool. Absolutely, yeah. Economics is kind of a gray area. It depends on which part of economics you're in. Just like, I wouldn't say all psychologists are scientists. Research psychologists absolutely are scientists. Some clinical psychologists only train to do treatments. And in that case, I wouldn't consider them a scientist if they're not doing research, if that makes sense. But like there are also some clinical psychologists who do research. Yeah, in Germany, have like Bull, which is more business oriented, and then there's VWL, which is more centered around economics of countries and so on. Ooh, I see. Yeah, different types of like focuses when you're studying economics. That makes sense. Or when you're learning about or practicing economics. Yeah, that makes sense. Scientific method involves systematic observation, accurate measurement, and stringent. And that's much more scientific. Yeah. It's like different, like you can have different focuses in the same field. So like psychology, you can focus on research or treatment. And the research side is definitely scientific. The treatment side is based in like the treatment methods are based off of scientific findings, but it's not actual science in and of itself. It's informed by science, but it isn't science itself. And yeah, so I imagine like some economists would definitely be scientists if they're doing the research. Other economists might not be doing research or engaging in the scientific method, but they might be creating information based on information that comes from the scientific method. Yeah. So like saying all psychologists are scientists or all economists are scientists or whatever might not necessarily be true, or like all engineers are scientists. That isn't true. But some engineers are scientists, some economists are scientists, some psychologists are scientists. It just depends on what you're trying to do in that field. If you're trying to generate information that is broadly applicable, chances are you're probably doing something that's scientific. If you're trying to deal with one very specific case that's not generalizable, like how do I build this specific bridge? How do I treat this specific individual or whatever? How do I run this specific business? that probably you're probably not doing science at that point. It's too specialized. You're probably pivoting, you know, like you're not sticking to a certain plan or something like that. You're pivoting when issues come up, and like you have no expectation that this would apply to other situations, like other bridges or other patients or whatever. I'm just kind of talking. I think I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense, but you know how it is. Sometimes you just gotta yap. Uh, Always made a distinction between, do you do research? Yeah, scientists. Are you using a skill that you learned through research? Not so much scientists. I agree. I agree. I agree, especially if you aren't the one that did the research. If you're practicing a skill that you learned as a skill, not that you like invented and pioneered through scientific research, I wouldn't consider you a scientist. But if you do research, if you do actually personally use the scientific method and are involved in a project that uses the scientific method and contribute to that project, I would consider you a scientist. Yeah. For me, it's all about, do you use the scientific method? That's it for me. So I can imagine there are people out there who like have zero, like don't strictly belong to any known discipline, but do use the scientific method to study this or that or the other thing. I would still consider them a scientist. Whereas, say, somebody who, you know, like, let's say they majored in biology, but somehow they never did any experiment that used the scientific method, which I don't know if maybe there are certain programs out there that would let you get away with that, but I would not consider that person a scientist if like all of their knowledge is theoretical and they've never actually done the scientific method themselves for something. But like you can use the scientific method for all kinds of silly things that like people wouldn't generally consider science, and I would still consider it science, like trying to figure out the best way to do something or other, like the best way to mine for diamonds in Minecraft. If you don't have access to the code, you might like run experiment. Like I've seen Minecraft YouTubers do that where they're like, okay, is the strip mining method or the caving method more effective? And what they do is they go and they try both. They come up with a hypothesis, they come up with a way to test it, they gather data, they analyze the data, and they come to a conclusion. I would consider that engaging in science, even though it's like you're just trying to figure out the best way to play a video game, right? Like in engineering, if you plan a house, pretty sure I wouldn't call you a scientist in most cases. Yeah, exactly. But you might be using things that scientists have discovered to plan that house. Like, where should I put, like, load-bearing walls and stuff like that? Or what material is the most strongest for accomplishing this and things like that. So you're probably using science, but you didn't actually engage in the scientific method to plan that house. Yeah. Let's see. Common sense seems to explain a lot. Yeah. Hindsight bias. Blah, 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 blah. Like, any research is usually good as long as it's performed properly. Figuring out why spaghetti breaks into three is a very important physics discovery. That is really interesting. I can see why that would be very important, but it seems silly. Are you planning a house that's upside down? Probably more scientist. Maybe. You'd probably have to, like... I think that depends. Like, you'd have to be using the scientific method to be a scientist, but you'd probably have to do several scientific studies to figure out how to build a house that is upside down that will work. All right, I think that's one lecture down. Hell yeah. I wonder if I should start on the next one. I've only been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Maybe I should start working on the next lecture. Woohoo! Yeah, woohoo! We did a thing! We worked on stuff! Alright, I'm gonna save this. And I gotta save a PDF version so I can give it to my students. And then I'll open my second lecture, which, speaking of science, my second lecture is research methods, and we can start working on that. Do-do-do. I hunger. I hunger. All right. Uh, Overview of research methods. I'm really bad at timing my lectures. One of the hardest things about planning lectures and making lectures for a class is getting it to be the appropriate time. Like, I need to figure out how many slides I can cover on average in a single class period, and that can be difficult. Like, it's not just the getting all the information in there, it's the timing. Because, like, it feels weird to, like, split different topics. Like, this class period is half this topic and half another topic, and then that topic's going to spill into it feels nicer to just do one class period per class topic, which means you have to like time stuff, and that's hard. That's hard. It's hard to figure out how long it's gonna, and like different classes take different amounts of times to do things, like especially in stats. Some classes are like really on top of it, other classes are not, which means like for some classes I can get through the t-test lecture in like real fast, like half a class session, but for other student classes, like it might take me a class and a half to get through the same lecture. It's so weird. Like, you'd think that, but it's not a random selection of students, right? Like, certain types of students are willing to take morning classes. Other types of students would prefer late afternoon classes. I find like the optimal time where like the most engaged students tend to sign up is like my 10:30, 11 o'clock classes. Those are like when the students are the most locked in. The 8 and 9 a.m. classes, like especially the 8 a.m. classes, half the class are people who intentionally signed up for an early class and are super locked in. And the other half of the class are people who only ended up in that class because no other class was available because they procrastinated so hard on sign up and they got stuck with the early morning class. So half the class is really locked in and on top of things. And the other half of the class is just like, they're not even awake. And then the late afternoon classes usually, for some reason, like, actually afternoon classes in general usually aren't terribly locked in either. They're kind of zony out. I think it's because like especially the later afternoon classes, like my 3 p.m. classes and 4 p.m. classes, I think those students, they've probably already had a few classes that day and their like brain is already kind of burnt out. Oh, and if you have classes at noon, your entire class is just hungry and they can't focus. It's really weird how that happens. Like, you could be teaching exactly the same class. Like, there's a lot of semesters, and it's going to happen this fall semester too, where I'm teaching the same class with the same material during the same semester, but it's offered at two different times, and like, one class will have a completely different atmosphere than the other class. So like you're teaching the same class, the same material during the same semester on the same campus, but depending on the time of day of the classes, the students in the class will like receive the material and interact with the material in a completely different way. And it's so weird. It's so weird. There's also like one or two students, like if you have like maybe like two or three really engaged students who are really excited about the material, that can make a huge difference. Like just having a couple of students who are like super into the material and participate in the class can change the atmosphere of the entire class. Like if you don't have any students like that who are like engaged in the material and excited about it and like asking questions or like answering questions you ask the class, like teaching can feel like pulling teeth. But just having a couple of students who are like engaged and stuff like that can save an entire class. And like it also affects the other students too. Like of course it helps me as the lecturer if people are like engaged in the class. But like if students see other students who are engaged in the topic, they also tend to be, in my experience, more awake and more likely to engage as well, because the social norm of like engaging is more there. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just that's the thing at the start of every semester. You got to figure out what the class culture is going to be. And depending on the class culture, you can do things as a teacher to try and affect that a little bit, but like if it's bad, you're screwed. You can try and do things, but there's only so much you can do as the lecturer, right? As a teacher. So I really appreciate students who like speak and like who raise their hand in class and like who engage or like who laugh at my jokes or like ask questions just because they're curious, not because they're like confused, but like, hey, I want to know more about this or stuff like that means so much to me as a teacher. means so much. Oh my gosh, those students are the reason I teach, I swear. Anyway, where was I? So that's what we're gonna do. So scientific method. This is a whole thing on scientific method. They've already taken their research methods class, so it's kind of weird. Is how the scientific method, I'm going to change this to be less jargony, is how scientists try to get an accurate representation of reality. Research, scientists have beliefs and biases too. We're only human, or Mothman. Or what is he? A light particle from the beginning of history, or white blood cells like Phi. We're just human. We're human. Well, we're mortal. We're mortal, and we also have our own beliefs and biases. We're not like perfect thinking. Clearly, we're not perfect thinking things because I cannot form a sentence. The scientific method tries to minimize bias. We do this by building theories and testing those theories. Yeah! Look at us go. We're making progress. Are any of you working on stuff too? I hope you're all making progress as well. Progress is good. People are intuitive scientists. You're probably already. They're probably already doing hypothesis testing. Just like, you know, people do hypothesis testing in their day-to-day life. Like they're doing the scientific method. Maybe not like super specific, but you know. I did a few things, finished what I need to do, won't get an email back till tomorrow, so yeah. That's my favorite thing. When you like finish your part of a project and then you just like, it's on your desk now, enjoy. I love that feeling. Like, yeah, maybe the project's not done, which sucks, but like, it's not on my desk anymore. It's somebody else's problem now. I'm starting to think I only half rigged the eyebrows on this model. They don't do the rise and fall thing. Oh well. I'm not going to worry about that too much. I can fix that another point. I'm not going to use... There's an acronym, HOMER, for the steps of the scientific method. I'm not going to use that. I think I used to... It doesn't really resonate with me, and like when something doesn't resonate with you, it's harder to teach it. Oh, hey, new model. Hey, Inks, welcome! Yes, new model. This is my new outfit. Isn't it nice? I like it a lot. It's got a lot on it. Maybe I can unzip my jacket. I might take off my jacket for today. Yeah. Thank you! I'm really happy with how it came out. Yeah, I want to make another model already, but I feel like I haven't used this one enough to justify making another model, so like, I'm just gonna keep making models for other people. I might even just make models with no intended destination and just be like, anyone want to adopt this one? That kind of thing. I love making live 2D models. After this, I'm going to start working. I've been working on another one, and I'm going to get back to working on it after I'm done making some progress on my slides. Yeah. I'm excited. There's so many models I want to make. And so little time. Okay, scientific method can be applied to the study of the mind and behavior, and this is psychology. That is such a boring way of phrasing that. We can use the scientific method to study how we think, feel, and act. This is psychology. That's what psychology is. What are the steps of the scientific method? You know, sometimes I like worry there's like this balance when you're teaching college students where it's like you don't want to make the material too like, you know, obscure. Like you don't want to like make it sound like too fancy or like, you know, you don't want to like make it sound like you're trying to sound smart or like use too much jargon and stuff. But you also don't want to make it feel like you're condescending. It's a difficult balance, you know? You don't want to sound condescending, but also you don't want to like overwhelm the students. And you just gotta hope that you're hitting the right balance. I worry about that a lot. Like, I have a lot of students who say that they like how nice and clear my slides are, and then like sometimes though I'll get complaints from more advanced students like, why aren't we reading more primary sources? Why aren't we? And I'm like, you know, I get it. Hypothesize. There are many versions of the steps of the hypothesis of the scientific method. This is just one version. I think that's fair to say. There's a lot of different ways to break it down, but it's the same general procedure. You've got your hypothesis, which is your guess of what's going to happen. Then you design, make up a study, measure, do the study, collect data, evaluate, what did you find, and then revise or replicate. Fix those problems, fix any problems, or see if it happens again. Replication, very important. We gotta talk more about replication. Maybe I should add a lecture to this class about replication. That could be fun. I do have room for that in here, in my syllabus. That worry alone separates you from like 90% of profs I have. I guess that's kind of comforting. I do have like, I don't know if this is an advantage, but I think like in terms of teaching, I have a bit of an advantage in that I actually want to teach. I got my PhD specifically so I could teach people, whereas for like a lot of professors, like they got their PhDs so that they could do research. And like I love doing research, don't get me wrong. I want to do more research. I love doing research, but it wasn't my primary motivation. So like I'm really interested in being a better teacher. And like I'm specifically in a teaching position, so being a good teacher gets me rewarded, you know, like that's the kind of thing that my promotions are based on, and like my evaluations at the end of a semester are based on how well I'm teaching. But for other people, for a lot of other professors, they don't really have a motivation to be good at teaching, because that's not what the like of course the university did hire them with the expectation they would teach, and like teaching is part of their job, but it's not the part of their job that actually gets them promotions, that gets them pay raises, that helps them keep their job, you know? So like they aren't very motivated to think about how best to teach, because there's not really much incentive for that, and that's also not the reason that they got the job. That's not why they sought out this job. They weren't interested in the teaching part. So for me, like, because the teaching is both the thing that gets me rewarded at my job and also the reason that I went for this type of job, I like to think I try and put more thought into it than many others. I don't know if that's actually true, but I like to think so anyway. That said, there's some teachers who primarily do research who really are also like they think a lot about teaching, which is cool. Half my profs didn't write the slides themselves. Oh, I get it. Like, I get it. Here's my secret. Here's my secret. Whenever I start a new class, whenever I start teaching, like I get assigned a new class to teach, what I do is I ask the other professors that I know who have taught the class, I ask them to share their materials with me. Like, hey, can you give me your slides? Hey, can you give me like your syllabus? Hey, can you give me this? And I look at that stuff, and a lot of the time, what I'll do is I will take their PowerPoint slides and I will go through and I will heavily edit them. So like sometimes I might leave a slide alone and be like, I think this slide is perfect as is. But like maybe I'll reword the slides to make them easier to understand, or I'll break one slide into like 5 different slides, or I'll be like, I don't think this information is actually useful, and I'll delete that slide, or like I'll add in slides, or like whatever. But a lot of my lectures at least started out as somebody else's slides, but I heavily edited them, deleted a bunch of slides, added a bunch of slides, rephrased a whole bunch of slides and stuff like that. Um, Making an entire lecture from scratch is hard. Making like 30 different lectures, which is roughly how many lectures I have to have for a class in a semester on your own, that's really rough. It's a good approach. Thank you. I like to think so. I think like for a lot of professors, unless they are building a class from the ground up, like if they're teaching psychology 101, or if they're teaching statistics, or if they're teaching like something that's taught at a lot of institutions as kind of a requirement, chances are good that they are using their own customized version of somebody else's customized version of somebody else's customized version of somebody else's customized version of the slides for that class. You know, like that has been my experience, that when somebody teaches a class, they will get slides from somebody else and modify them, and that person probably got them from somebody else, and you may never know who created the original slide deck that all of these slides are based on. That's definitely been my experience. And some people just won't customize the slides. Like you said, like some people will just like take the slides and teach somebody else's slides. And like that's so hard. Like a lot of the times you might not have no idea what the intention of a given slide was, or like what this person was trying to say on a slide. And like honestly, I think that's a harder, like, is it less work to just use somebody else's slides with no editing? Yes. But I would consider it a much higher difficulty level. Like, sometimes the things that require more work are easier. You know? It's like having custom equipment for a sport, you know? Like, if you get customized, like, skates or a customized skateboard or something, that might actually be easier for you to use than the generic version, but it takes a lot more time and effort to get that custom version. And it's like the paradox of like sometimes to make things easier you gotta do a lot more work, and sometimes not to. Actually, when I say it that way, when I put it that way, it feels like common sense, actually. I don't know. Sometimes being lazy makes things harder. Yeah, no kidding. Even worse, we had profs that made the students help them write, not even using slides from the... That's rough. That's rough. Like, in some cases, I think that makes sense. So, like, I'm thinking, like, flipped classrooms, right? Where, like, your goal is to... So, like, I think... And this has very much been my experience specifically with statistics. One of the best ways to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. Like, hands down. Hands down, I did not understand statistics nearly that as well as I do now until I started teaching statistics. Like, having to explain something to people is incredibly helpful for me in terms of learning to understand what I'm talking about, which, you know, I feel like that feels like it doesn't make sense, but it's incredibly effective. It is one of the single best ways to learn. So I can see, like, from a pedagogical standpoint of, like, the best way to teach somebody how to do a thing having them create teaching materials for that thing could be a very effective way to do that. But on the other hand, it's also your job as the instructor to make the teaching materials. Like, you should have prepared teaching materials, and if you want students to create teaching materials, it shouldn't be because you need those materials, it should be because you think that's the best way to teach the students, you know? Like, you should ideally have your own version of those teaching materials already made, and not just be relying on the students to make their own teaching materials that you would use for the student. Is this making sense? I don't know if it's making sense. Like, I think there's merit in that, but you can't use it to skip. You should use it for the right reasons. You shouldn't make your students create teaching material to save yourself work. If you do that, you should do it because you know it's a good way to help students learn, and you should have already done your share of the work. I think that's kind of how I would think about that. I would like to actually incorporate that kind of thing more into my classes, like, because I know it's a good way to learn, having students teach other students things, but also it's tricky. Like, everything's a balance. Everything's a balance. You want to, like, get students to learn things, but if you have the students teach their classmate things, they might perceive that as you being lazy. And for some teachers, I imagine it is being lazy. Yeah, my job as someone teaching other students is the only reason I got a good school diploma, right? It's super helpful. It's super helpful. Like, it kind of feels like you're throwing yourself into the deep end, though. Like, teaching somebody something before you fully understand it really does feel scary, and like you're throwing yourself into the deep end, and also it is scary because, like, what if I'm not explaining it right to this other person who's relying on me? But on the other hand, it's a very good way to learn. Like, it's tricky. It's tricky. Uh, some hypotheses come from theories. Other hypotheses from your own life experience. Your own experiences. Let's figure this out together. Yeah, exactly. Let's learn it together. Let's work through this problem together. Let's knock our heads together and see if we can shake both of our brains into shape. I do think that's another good way to learn, like learning something with somebody else, right? Oh man. Man, I'm hungry. Getting really hungry. I guess I haven't had too much to eat today. Do people still say these phrases? Like, I'm using these phrases in my lectures, like honey catches more flies than vinegar. Is that something like that you have heard? Is that a phrase that people still use? I've also got birds of a feather flock together. I think that's a more common one, but honey catches more flies than vinegar. It doesn't feel really up to date. Try to think of like phrases that are like common phrases that people use about how people behave. Ah. I've never heard the honey, but it's also I'm British, so different phrases anyway. Yeah, and I'm not even American. Ah, I'm getting mixed results. I see, I see. The honey catches more flies than vinegar means being nice to somebody is more likely to get you what you want than being mean to them. Like, you're more likely to get, like, let's say, like, if I want like something off menu, I want a special drink, like, or like I'm at a restaurant and I'm ordering a sandwich, but I want it without the tomatoes or whatever. I'm more likely to get that modified sandwich if I'm nice when I'm asking for it than if I go full Karen or whatever. You know, that's what honey catches more flies than vinegar means. You're more likely to get things. It was definitely still a thing. Good. Thank you, Sparky. I feel deeply comforted. And then birds of a feather flock together means that like similar people hang out. People who are similar to one another tend to spend time with one another. That's what that one means. What was I doing? Oh, right. I'm changing some things. Take your question, hypothesis, and find a way of answering testing. Oh man. Food. I might need to stop stream so I can go eat something because my brain is just shutting down. It's like, you need food right now, and if you don't eat, you're just gonna say food on repeat until you get some food. What if there must be a way to find other phrases like that. What are those phrases called? Like idioms? Idioms. I think that's the name for them. Idioms. Yeah, thanks, yeah, idioms. I just think of beat around the. These aren't. No, idioms are too short. Expressions. Expressions. Idioms and expressions. Okay. A penny saved is a penny earned. Actions speak louder than words. Ooh, that would be a good one. Actions speak louder than words. I'm thinking of like idioms and stuff that you could turn into like a hypothesis. So actions speak louder than words. You could say, you're more likely to trust somebody who actually helps you as opposed to somebody who promises to help you, or something like that. Or like, you're more likely to trust somebody who keeps a secret for you than somebody who just says they're trustworthy. Um, let's see. Do, 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 do. Good things will come to those who waits, maybe. It takes one to know one. That's something you could test. Takes one to know one. Are are liars better at lie detection, for example? Like, if somebody lies a lot, are they better at identifying other people who lie a lot? So like, does it really take one to know one? Are people who have a certain characteristic better at identifying others with that characteristic than people who don't have it? Oh, these are fun. Anyway, I should keep working on these slides. This is a long PowerPoint. This is one that I think I'd have to stretch across 3 class sessions. It's a lot. Trust is like glass, hard to repair. Ooh, I haven't heard that one before, but that one makes sense as well. But you'd have to compare trust to something else. So you'd take trust as one condition, and then something else as another condition, and compare which one is more difficult to restore. Yes, yes, yes! We shall learn the great things. These are all good ideas. I might just keep the ones that I have here, though. I think they make enough sense. All right. Trust versus authority. Oh, yeah. If somebody undermines your authority versus undermines your trust. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Oh man, I'm all out of my drink as well. The world is cruel. Right. All right, I think these are probably fine. Maybe I should find some other correlational method examples. What are some fun studies? Let me think of some fun papers that I've read recently. I just need to read more papers in general. I've gotten lazy about reading papers since I graduated. I just need to do, I should do more paper reading streams. I think that's it. That's what I gotta do. See. But I think I'm making pretty good progress. We're making pretty good progress. Maybe I'll go to the 2 hour mark with the stream and then I might dip to go do something else, whatever that may be. Rather than manipulate, we always say manipulate a variable. I wonder if change a variable is a better way to put it. Enjoyed your BL paper reading? Oh, I had a lot of fun with that. That was a lot of I would love to do more videos like that, but I kind of save the video format for like if there's a paper that's blowing up on social media. But if there's ever a paper you'd love to see me do it, or you want to see me do a deep dive on, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Because I really liked that video a lot, and I would love to do more videos like that. I think if there's ever, yeah, like I like reading papers on stream. That one was a nice deep dive one. If I can find another deep dive one, I would like to do that. Yeah, if there's ever any papers you want to see my opinion on, feel free to like drop them in a comment. I think my email's listed on my YouTube channel. Like send them to my email. I check that periodically. Yeah, I would love to do more of those. And that was pretty well received too. But it's just like it's one of those like you gotta wait for the right opportunity. You gotta wait for the opportunity to do the thing. You're specialized in social psychology and statistics, right? Yes, yes. I specialized in social psychology, and I'm pretty good at like I'm not incredible at I wouldn't consider myself an expert in statistics, but I like to think I'm better at statistics than the average psychologist, if that makes sense. I wouldn't call myself specialized. I'm not that confident, but I'm pretty decent at it. I'm pretty decent at stats. I really like fandom papers though, like that kind of thing. Like the BL one that was just cool, especially because a lot of people were questioning it on Twitter, and they're all like, is this good? Is this bad? Or a lot of people were dunking on it, and I'm like, is this dunking justified? Yeah, makes sense. Better than I am. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how good you are, so who knows? You might be better than me. But I am fairly proud of my stats abilities because I used to be horrible at stats. Stats was my worst subject in undergrad. So I'm really happy with how far I've come to being like one of the default stats teachers in my department. That makes me, I'm really proud of myself. We've got to celebrate the victories when we get them, you know? Not good, the bar is low. Well, there's always room for, that's what I've learned. I have improved a lot. You can always improve. Yeah, it's just it's a matter of like trying. And like, of course, we're living creatures. We're living creatures, right? We can only try at so many things, you know? So it's just a matter of like, what do you want to split your attention on? And for me, I decided to focus on stats. I took a lot of stats courses in grad school. And that's why I got decent at them. And like I did like extracurricular stats things. I took courses outside the department. I spent a lot of time hanging around the statistics instructors and stuff. And it was like a very intentional, active effort to get better at statistics. I need to do that with animation. There's I have a problem where I just want to do too many things. That's why I'm not as active as Mylan as I could be. It's because I'm doing like 10 billion other things as well. Like I want to be a researcher, and I want to be a creative writer, and I want to be an artist, and I want to be an animator, and I want to be a live 2D creator, and I want to make a comic, and I want to write a like I want to be a VTuber. I want to do this and that and the other thing, and it's too much. It's too much. I'm trying to do too many things at once. I think the story of my life is like jack of all trades, master of none, but it's not even all trades. It's like I just do a lot of different things, and I'm never going to be the best at any one of them, or even like in the top percent of any one of the things that I do, but I at least want to be decent at a bunch of things. The problem is I want to be decent at too many things. Something has to give. Yeah. And for me, that's like, what has to give is that I'm never gonna create a masterpiece. I'm never gonna create a masterpiece. I'm never gonna be a top streamer. I'm never gonna be like a well-known, famous researcher. I'm never gonna be a best-selling novelist. But I get to do a lot of fun things. I'm never going to be at the top of any given field, but you know, yeah, exactly. As long as you're enjoying yourself, and I'm definitely enjoying myself. And I think I'm at a decent level in a fair number of things. I'm a decent comic creator. I'm a decent writer. Like people can read my writing and they'll finish stories that I write. They won't drop them. Like, you know, some people if they like the story, you know. Like you know. It's all about figuring out what you want in life. And that doesn't have to be, like, you can do things just for the love of the game, you know? You don't need to, like... Yeah. Most people that created masterpieces did not enjoy themselves. Exactly. Like, as cool as it would be to create a masterpiece and be, like, you know, like, everybody, like, being like, wow, you're incredible, you're amazing. A lot of people, that if you're too focused on creating a masterpiece, you become miserable, probably, because it's never going to be perfect. It's more like a compilation, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Compulsion, yeah. A lot of the problem is like, there's that phrase, perfect is the enemy of good, or like perfect is the enemy of done. And I think that's like kind of my life philosophy. Like, I have impulses towards perfectionism. Like, nothing is ever good enough. Nothing is ever done. But I fight them because, like, I would never do anything if I was a perfectionist, you know? Like, nothing would ever get out there if everything needed to be perfect. So every day is a battle with my own inner perfectionism, but, like, and you're also never going to have fun. You're never going to enjoy things. And life's too short not to enjoy at least some things, you know? Have a hobby that you enjoy just for the sake of having a hobby, not for the sake of clout or money or whatever. Just do something because you enjoy it, you know? Kind of thing. It's a good approach to life, I think. I like to think it's a good approach to life. Again, like, it also matters, like, what kind of life you want to lead. Like, I'm the type of person who I don't really care about, like, fame or anything like that. I'm fine as long as I have enough money to live comfortably. I don't want to be rich or anything. But for some people, like, it might be very important to them. Like, they want to be rich, or, like, one of their primary life goals is to achieve some level of fame. And that's something that I would never want for myself. And that's why my approach to life works for me. But, like, if you want to create a masterpiece, my approach to life is not going to be the approach to life for you, you know? Like, different strokes for different folks, I think is the phrase. I want to find a good field experiment. I have an example of a field experiment in here, but I think it's more... I'd like something simpler. Or like flashier. Here's one. Rewarding volunteers in the Red Cross. Uh, so that's interesting. This was... I'd like to find a more recent article, though. This is from 2014. The fatiguing effects of camera use in virtual meetings. Oh, that's a fun one. Oh, but it's not open access. I would like to find something open access. Field experimental evidence of the effects of AI on knowledge worker productivity and quality. Ooh. Performance implications of AI. 758 consultants. Performance baseline on a similar task, randomly assigned to no AI, ChatGPT, or GPT, or two different versions of GPT, or no AI, AI, or AI, and training and prompt engineering. Sometimes AI helped, sometimes it hurt. So in some situations, the AI improved performance. In other situations, it really hurt performance. That might be a little more fuzzy than something I want to use in like an introduction slide as an example of a field experiment. Ooh, this one is about online marketing. I don't want cookies. I'm just here to look at the paper. Does this have any figures? I love things with figures. Show me the figures. I want pictures. I want my pretty pictures that I can put in my PowerPoint. Pretty picture PowerPoint. Ooh, okay. Field experiment. This is also interesting because you usually think of field experiment out in the world. This is a field experiment on a real web page online. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow. What did they find? Anyway, let's not use that. I want something flashy. Like-minded sources on well, there's a Nature paper. How do peer awards? Oh, this is a Reddit field experiment. Oh no, it downloaded. I don't like it when things down. I just want to view it in browser. You want to fight? You want to fight? I'll defeat you in battle. Theorize peer awards effect on volume. Anonymous. We randomly and anonymously assigned Reddit's gold award. They just randomly assigned people to receive Reddit gold awards. Over 2 months, we find that peer awards induce recipients to make longer, more frequent posts, and these effects were particularly pronounced among newer community members. Furthermore, we show recipients were casually influenced to engage in a greater or lesser exploitation or This is also an interesting example of ethics, because this is research on Reddit, and I'm not sure if they got consent to do this. Interesting. Interesting. I feel like because that also addresses research ethics that might be a bit complicated to bring up as just an example of a field experiment, but it's neat. I want a field experiment that was done out in the field, like in real life. So those tend to be more impressive or exciting for... And this isn't a field experiment, this is a quasi experiment. Mega study... Nah. In an actual field, maybe in an actual field. I did just find one about droughts, but that wasn't an actual experiment because you can't randomly assign a region to have a drought. I don't think that's ethical. And that might strain our current levels of climate science. That might be difficult. Swarm of micro flying robots in the world? Hello? Hello? Micro flying robots? These are autonomous drones with a trajectory planner that can function in a timely and accurate manner based on limited information from on... Okay, this is not psychology, but that's the whole thing. It's really hard to find good paper examples for, like, things. It takes, like, a really long time. It's difficult. But I think it's very important. Oh, here's one on soybeans! Somebody called Bobo. It's very difficult to find good examples. But I think it's important to show, like, hey, here's a real thing that people did. Here's a real study. A field experiment on barriers faced by Muslim women in Germany, Netherlands, and Spain. What's this? Penalties to Facebook. Based on cross-nationally harmonized field experiment on hiring discrimination, we used 2 different signals of Muslimness, volunteering activities, or wearing a headscarf to identify whether employers discriminate against Muslims as a group. That's an interesting field study, but I'm already doing hiring studies in a different lecture. I'd like some more variety. Taking a short break from social media have a positive effect on well-being. Gender discrimination and hiring studies are really cool, but they're not... I use them a lot already. I don't want to, like, imply that that's more common than it is, you know? Like, I want to give a wide variety of types of studies. Social motivation at work. There's another online one. Higher socioeconomic status does not predict decreased pro-social behavior. Oh, interesting. That actually contradicts some of the stuff I teach later in the semester. Is hybrid work the best of both worlds? Oh, let's check this one out. Is hybrid work better? Causal evidence on how the extent of hybrid work, the number of days worked from home relative to days worked from the office, affects outcomes relevant for workers and firms. They collaborated with an organization in Bangladesh, randomized the number of days that individual employees got to work from home or the office for 9 weeks. An intermediate number of days in the office resulted in greater self-reported work-life balance and lower isolation from colleagues. Furthermore, hybrid work also led to a greater volume of emails, more unique email recipients, and more unique information conveyed in the emails. Hybrid work was also linked with better performance ratings for managers. Ooh, that's kind of neat. This sounds like a good thing for a good study to use as an example. Let's do this. There. I'll use that as our example. And I'll put the abstract in my notes so that I can remember what the study was about. And let's find some images to put in with there. Working from home. And I want some images. Like to put some pictures in there. Put some pictures in that PowerPoint so it doesn't look so boring. It's more visually interesting. I don't know, I don't actually do well when I guess I'm working from home right now and I'm doing just fine. What am I talking about? I was gonna say I don't work well doing working from home, but we'll see. Let's see. I know, like, there's this really interesting work on like contextual things that, like, if you always work in the same place, you tend to be more productive. But if you work in an area where you do other things, so like if I try and work on the couch, which is where I usually sit to like goof off and play video games and stuff, I am not very productive. That's why home offices are important if you want to work from home. You need a designated place to work, or else like you get distracted by like the other things that you might do in that space. So I used to struggle a lot with work from home. Now that I have my PC, it's compartmentalization. Yeah, compartmentalization is definitely part of it. But it's like there's this interesting stuff of like if you often like lay around in bed and do things other than sleeping, like if you like to lay in bed and read or lay in bed on your phone or whatever, there's studies suggesting that you have more trouble sleeping because you're not just associating the bed with sleep, you're associating the bed with other activities as well, which yeah, it can mess with it can mess with your ability to engage in certain types of activities. But yeah, compartmentalization is also absolutely part of it. I was gonna say that comes up a lot in sleep science. Yeah, exactly. I've mostly heard of it in terms of both sleep science and like studying for exams. Like if you can study for an exam in the classroom where you're going to take the exam, that is pretty ideal. Or like, don't study for an exam when you're drunk or high unless you plan to take the exam drunk or high, which I wouldn't recommend, but like, you need to be in a similar mental and physical state when you're studying to when you're going to take the exam. Because a lot of memory is context dependent. Like being in a certain context helps you remember other things that occurred in that context, kind of deal. And it's the same for like sleep and behavior. Like, we're a very contextual species. The lingo. Oh my gosh, I use the word lingo. I don't know. Is lingo cringe and old? I like the phrase lingo, but oh man. I'm probably overthinking this. It's fine to use lingo, right? This is just like, rather than saying vocabulary, yes, but you should own it. Okay, all right, I'm gonna lean into it. I'm gonna lean into the cringe. Thank you. Thank you for validating me. The lingo. When you manipulate something, it's referred to as an independent variable. After manipulating this, you measure that to see if this is... It's fine. Lingo's usually fine, depending on how you say it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Lingo. I'll probably end up saying it like the lingo. Actually, I don't know how I'm gonna say it. Lingo. Lingo. I'll figure. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I never consider myself a cool person, but I'll pretend that I'm hip and cool and up to date with the lingo. I imagine if I say it that way, that's more like painful. But also, you can tell I'm somewhat self-aware of the agony that I'm causing, right? In which case, maybe it's not as bad, right? Surely. Variable manipulation. When X is manipulated, you can randomly assign people different levels or groups of X. Individual differences wash out. Everybody pretends to be cool. It's true. I don't even pretend to be cool. I pretend to be pretending that I'm cool sometimes. But I never actively pretend to be cool, because I know I have never been cool. Like, when I was in high school, you get those, like, senior superlatives, like, the most blah, the most blah. I was voted the most likely to hold an anime convention in my house. I was dubbed the ruler of the nerds. Like, I have never been cool. And I'm okay with that. Actually, I think I was cool in elementary school. But like being cool in elementary school is like that's not that's nothing to brag about. When you manipulate X, you randomly assign people different levels, groups, or conditions of X. Individual differences, random assignment makes a ruler is pretty cool. I agree. I agree. I was real cool back in the day. I was the leader of the nerds. So I was cool in certain circles, very specific circles, but I was at the top of the bottom of a hierarchy. uh, I was the coolest uncool kid. Uh, anyway. Strengths and limitations of experimental research. High school's weird. High school was a really weird time. And my high school is like particularly weird in some ways. I mean, every high school has its own idiosyncrasies, right? But my high school, like, I went to high school in an in a strange area, and there were certain world like I can't say too much without doxing myself probably, but I went to high school in a very interesting area that had an interesting demographic breakdown. And I was specifically going to high school at a time when two portions of that demographic breakdown were in active political conflict in my state. Like, of course, it wasn't like a violent conflict, but there were some very heated arguments, and like half of my school was very heavily on one side of the argument, and the other half of my school is very heavily on the other side of the argument, and it could get pretty tense. It could get pretty tense. I think we made it on the news because our school is just that, like, it was that much of a powder keg. And of course, almost none of us were old enough to actually vote. But most of us felt very strongly about it, and that led to a certain level of conflict. It's a very strange time. I have stories from high school, man. Someday I should tell some of those stories. Hmm. I'm starting to get hungry to the point where I can't really think straight. Maybe I should stop. I've gotten through a lecture and a bit. A lecture and a third, right? That's fine, right? I say and then continue going. This is typical Mylan behavior. I'm like, oh, I'm done. Or I'm gonna take a break, and then I just keep going. Like I said, I was gonna stop at the next hour mark, and we're already 15 minutes past that. Like, that's the. Didn't you say you wanted food? I did say that. This is how I get so productive. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a break, and then I just don't. That's progress. It is progress, right? Hello, Mr. Kitty. Mr. Kitty is here to say hello. I love you, Mr. Kitty. It's so good to see you. Would you fetch me some food? It's probably fine. I don't know. It's your module. Right. Right. It's fine. Oh, that pee. the P for p-value on this slide is not written correctly. I am going to make sure that it is lowercase and in italics. It's very important to me. Nobody else will care, but I care. Mr. Kitty, they're saying hello to you. Oh, good boy. He slow blinked. He slow blinked. Oh, he slow blinked again. He's saying hello back. Oh, I love you, Mr. Kitty. You're the best thing in the whole wide world. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Okay. Statistical validity. Can you be confident that your effect was not just due to random chance? Can you be confident that what you found would happen again? I guess would be another way to phrase that. APA rules have to be followed. Exactly. Exactly, Ark. You understand. We're getting very intense about it. The APA rules must be followed. Always. Always. We are going to do it. It's so important. Yeah. Okay. Get rid of that. Statistics have higher validity when effects are big, and you have a lot of data. More participants is more accuracy and reliability. Larger effects is more accuracy and reliability. Maybe rather than larger effects, I should say stronger effects. I think that's a bit clearer. Like, large effect, that might not make sense, but a strong effect? A strong effect is like a big difference, you know? It's like a big impact. Strong! I think that might be a little clearer for my students. I hope. Validity issues those are always important. Researchers should try to test hypotheses in both the lab and the field. Maybe one study high in internal validity, or the ideal would be ideal situation. One study high in internal validity and one high in external validity that find the same thing. That would be the ideal. Like, if you're trying to find a new effect or test a hypothesis, the ideal would be you have one study that shows it works in the lab when you've ruled out any other explanation and can establish causation, and another study showing that it happens in the real world as well. Because the lab is very different from, like, out in day-to-day life, right? So ideally, an effect should work both when you have, like, everything's as clean and as experimental as possible, and also in the messy real world. That would be, like, the ideal. I was trained to try and, like, publish papers where I have one study showing that this happens in the lab and another study showing that this happens in the real world. So, like, does it happen in the cleanest possible circumstances, and does it also happen, like, in the chaotic mess of reality? That's the ideal. And I think that's a very good way to do science. Because if it happens in the lab, it doesn't happen in the real world, it may or may not be useful. If it happens in the real world, but it doesn't happen in the lab, then there's probably something else going on. We use the wording large effect strength. Ah, yeah. That's an interesting way of wording it. I haven't heard it worded that way before, but I think that also makes a lot of sense. Ethics and research. Maybe I'll leave off here. I can edit the ethics portion of the lecture tomorrow. Because I'm getting so hungry that I can't focus. But we've been working for 2 hours and 20 minutes, pretty much solid. Or, well, yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes solid. So I think that's pretty good. I think we got a lot done today. I think we accomplished some good things. Good work. Good job, team. We did it. We worked hard. We have done the thing. And soon, we will be stronger than ever. And when the semester comes, we will be prepared. Oh, hey, Pa, how you doing? Glad to see you're here. Thank you, thank you. Good job to all of you, too. Woohoo! Yeah, we did it. We did it. I don't, real world and the laboratory, that would be the dream, right? I've managed to pull off a few studies that show up in both the real world and the lab, and that is like the best feeling. It's like, ha, look at me go, I'm so strong. Nice work. Thank you. Thank you. Did my best. Did my best. All right. For my next trick, I'm gonna go find myself some food. So that I can stop complaining about how hungry I am. Maybe I'll do a little more work. Actually, no. I'm gonna get myself some food, and then I'm gonna go work on this live 2D model, I think. I'm at the point where I have to rig a mouth, and rigging the mouth is the worst. But we're gonna do it because we are strong and powerful, and we're the best, right? Yeah. All of these things are true. All right. Take care, everyone. I will see you on the other side.